This is Doug DeMuro, and today I'm going to give you an update on my new Land Rover Defender. As you may know, I have a 2020 Land Rover Defender. I bought it last November, so I've only had it about 9 months, but it already has 19,500 miles on it, just under 20,000. That's because I have now driven it across the country 4 separate times, which is pretty insane. And I just got back from my latest trip, about 7,000 more miles, and one thing broke, but anyway, let's talk about it. Okay, so a little background. I just drove my Defender from San Diego, California, where I live, which is in the extreme southwestern corner of the United States, all the way to Nantucket, Massachusetts, which is in the extreme northeastern corner of the United States, all the way. It's a ridiculous trip. One way is like 3,000 miles or something. But then I did that in June, and then in July, I drove it all the way home. So a total of something like 7,000 miles all in on this trip, I think. It's just a lot of driving. And I actually did the same trip in the winter as well. So it's really been asked, the new Defender. I've asked it to do a lot of driving in its short little life. 9 months, almost 20,000 miles. But the Defender did it without a hitch. Mostly. The thing is, every single time I post about how I'm going somewhere in my new Defender or show a picture of my new Defender or whatever, people just start chiming in, oh, it's a Land Rover, it's gonna break, they always break, it's not gonna, you're gonna get stranded in the middle of Texas and get eaten by a family of armadillos. That's generally what people tell me whenever I post about my new Defender. It's just constant. You know, it's a Land Rover, it'll break down. I have no idea where they get this from. No, I mean, Land Rover isn't responsible for making the world's most reliable cars, and I certainly have experience with that, but it's also a brand new vehicle. So I had pretty good confidence that it was gonna make it across the country. And now I've done that trip 4 times, which is just ridiculous, and it's really been fine. Although I have to admit, just before I set off for my trip, I wasn't quite so sure. So let's go back to that. A few weeks before I left for my trip, I actually posted a video here on this channel. And I said, you know, the sunroof had stopped working at some point on my prior long distance trip, but the dealer said there was a loose connection. They fixed it. Now it's been working. Other than that, the only problem I had was a check engine light had turned on. And then a couple weeks later or a week later, it turned off. The car self-healed, which happens. To the kind of cars I have. And so I thought, well, you know, that's really not all that bad. And I posted that update and I said, that's all it's been, and now I'm gonna drive it across the country. Well, pretty much the day after I posted that update, a second check engine light turned on. So I posted that update, and then a few days later, I was gonna leave for my trip, and then the check engine light turns on. Now, I should say I had just had it at the dealership, like a couple days before that, to get an oil change for the road trip, and they looked at the stored fault code for the previous check engine light, and they did a little bit of work, and they fixed whatever the problem was. And then I posted that update, and then like 2 days later, after it had just been at the dealership, the check engine light goes on again. So I'm thinking, well, you know, my dealer, do they really know what they're doing? And also I'm thinking, well, this check engine light is gonna come on during my trip and it's going to cause problems. Now, to be clear, check engine lights don't really scare me all that much. I've owned a lot of cars. I've seen a lot of check engine lights, especially the type of cars I own often turn on check engine lights. And I know from experience, the check engine light was designed not to tell you that there's some major problem with the engine that could cause a breakdown, but to tell you that there's a problem with the emission system in the car. And a check engine light is not something you want to ignore for a long time. You're gonna get it fixed, but you know, it also isn't necessarily telling you that you gotta pull over in 2 miles or else your car is gonna blow up. You can generally drive on a check engine light for a while because it's really more of an emissions thing than an actual, you know, engine fatal flaw type situation. But still, I'm going on a 7,000 mile trip. I don't want to start off with the check engine light on. You know, that's ideally not the situation you want to be in. So the dealer had just worked on the car a couple days before, and then a couple days later, I post the video and then the check engine light turns on again. And I'm having a little bit of a crisis of confidence in the Defender, and also I'm having a little bit of crisis of confidence in my dealer. Are they really able to diagnose this car's issue? So I bring it in. So, they understand the urgency of this, that I'm leaving so soon and we got to get this fixed. I take the car in right away, and guess what? This new check engine light is actually something different and unrelated to the original check engine light. So it's not the dealer's fault at all. In fact, the dealer did a great job throughout this. This is Hohen, Jaguar, Land Rover in Carlsbad here in San Diego. Not the dealer's fault, they did great. The car just happened to have 2 separate fault codes in the span of a few weeks for 2 separate issues. But the dealer fixes the most recent fault code as well, and that's that. But I'm happy at that point that the car is fixed, but I'm still, driving home from the dealer, and I kind of remember this was, 6-8 weeks ago, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm leaving on this trip in a couple days, and I just had my second check engine light in like a month, and is this really gonna work? I'm not really so sure. What's gonna happen on this trip? But the answer is nothing happened. I then did the entire 7,000 miles and I didn't have any check engine lights again. The dealer did fix whatever it was. They got it set up, no problems, and absolutely nothing at all hindered this trip, except there was one little issue, which is the sunroof stopped working. This actually happened 6 months ago. The sunroof stopped working. I couldn't get it to open. I pressed the button and nothing would happen. And at the time, I took it into the dealership and they told me, hey, there was a loose connection. We reconnected it, fixed, all good. And I've been driving around using the sunroof and it's been working since then. But obviously it stopped again on this trip. And this time it was actually kind of annoying because I took the car to like a beach destination. I want to be able to, drive it with the windows down and the giant panoramic sunroof that I paid, $2,000 extra for as an option. I want to be able to use that thing. But I couldn't, so that was a little bit annoying. There's no question about that. But anyway, it did break. It isn't working. It's not working now. I just got back from this trip literally yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to even schedule a visit yet to take it in to see what's going on, but that's the latest. No real issues, no mechanical issues, no flaws, no major stuff, but the sunroof has stopped working again. But anyway, the Defender itself, let's talk about the Defender itself. I've now got 20,000 miles on my Defender. So I got a lot of seat time in this vehicle. And I have to say, the more I drive it, the more I like it. People are constantly asking me what I think about this car. And on this trip, I did probably about 200 miles of off-road driving in addition to all the on-road driving. Nothing very technical. Probably like 95% of it was just driving on beach sand. But the new Defender is an excellent car, whether you're off-road or on-road. And I've done some pretty grueling off-road stuff with it as well, and it handled all of that. People are constantly coming up to me on the street. It's crazy how often I'm getting approached. How do you like it? Hey, my LR4 is getting old. What do you think of the new Defender? Hey, I had an old Defender back in the 90s. What do you think of the new one? Hey, the lease is ending on my X5. Should I get one of these? It's constant. People are coming up to me. And I generally have nothing but good things to report to these people. It's generally been a fantastic experience. It's comfortable. I obviously have driven 20,000 miles in 9 months. I've had a lot of seat time. It's comfortable. The seating position is great. You sit up high. Which not a lot of crossovers these days are kind of going away from that high seating position. Defender still has it. The technology is good. Obviously, I find the off-road capability to be fantastic. It's practical. It's useful. I think it's generally pretty good looking, not amazingly good looking, but and frankly, it's still kind of cool. And for me, it's kind of fun to have this cool new car that isn't that common yet. I have never been like the cool guy. I've never had like the hot new toy. I have cool cars, obviously, but it's car people who come up to you have one of these. With new Defender, it's everybody. It's like, whoa, this is like this cool new thing. And that is, there's something fun about that. And I don't think I ever realized that. I always thought, why do people buy new cars, first year models? Why would anybody do that? And the answer is there's something actually kind of enjoyable about like not ever seeing this cool new thing. You're the first. Anyway, with that said, about new Defender, there are 3 common questions that I'm getting that I want to address. Number 1, most importantly, a lot of people are asking me, now that the new Bronco is coming out, do you regret getting the Defender? Do you wish you had gotten the Bronco instead? And I've been very clear about this from the beginning. I do not regret it at all. The purpose of the Defender for me is a daily driver usable car that I can drive around Southern California and film videos with. It has to be comfortable. It has to have good technology, adaptive cruise control. It has to be really nice. I have 2 off-roader SUVs that are not quite all that nice. I do not need a 3rd in the new Bronco. The new Bronco seems really cool. I've got a review of it coming soon, but a lot of it is removable. It's not the Defender is a lot more comfortable, a lot more luxurious, a lot nicer, and that is what I needed from this particular car. That doesn't mean I don't like the Bronco, that doesn't mean I don't think it's great, whatever, but I wasn't even considering the new Bronco when I got the Defender. I needed a car that I could use comfortably and luxuriously to just kill miles, which is pretty much what I've been doing with it. And the Defender's great at that, and much better than the Bronco. People are also asking me, well, don't you regret, now that the V8 Defender is coming out, don't you wish you had waited for that? And the answer is here again, no, not really. I'm not as emphatic about this. The car could use more power. It's a little down on power, even with the 6-cylinder that I have. But I'm only getting 16 to 19 miles per gallon with the 6-cylinder. Putting a V8 in there would give me much less miles. And again, you got to think about the purpose I'm using this for. I'm not trying to drag race. I have fast cars if I want to do fun stuff. I just want a car that can drive me around Southern California so I can film videos. That's all I'm looking for, really. And do some light off-roading, which I've done. And so not skipping the V8, again, another thing, has not really made me feel too disappointed or whatever. Obviously, I'm excited to test those cars out when they come, but in terms of me owning it, I don't need the fuel economy penalty. I will not appreciate the extra power. The last thing, a lot of people are asking me, hey, I'm thinking about getting out of my X5 or my Mercedes, my GLE or whatever, like even my Discovery. What do you think about new Defender for that? And the answer is, it's an interesting kind of a mix. I like it. It's been great for me, but I don't have incredibly high standards when it comes to interior quality, and I have very high standards when it comes to capability. And so I get in my new Defender, and I love it because it's kind of cheap inside. You can throw stuff around and kick stuff. I have an inch of beach sand in my new Defender right now, all over, front, rear, the seats, everywhere. And I wouldn't want to do that in an X5, but that's one of the things I like about it. It's pretty utilitarian. But I think if you're coming out of an X5 or a GLE, you have a certain expectation about interior quality, materials, that sort of thing, and I don't think the Defender really fits into that. Instead, you're paying the money to get capability. I have an enormous amount of features in this car. I got locking differential, I got all this terrain response system that can, change the driving experience based on terrain. I have a water depth sensor that tells you how deep the water you're wading into is. Camera system under the car. I mean, it's unbelievable capability stuff. Air suspension obviously will lift it up to give you more ground clearance. If you're not going to be using that stuff, you are paying for capabilities that you're not getting. And so what I tell people who are getting out of an X5 and think about Defender is, it's not going to be the same. It will not drive as sporty as the X5. The interior is not as nice as the X5, but you're getting capability instead. Which is more important to you? And a lot of people are asking me this, and I know a lot of people watching are probably thinking this, and that's the answer to that question. New Defender looks really, really special and cool, but you gotta ask yourself, is it really worth some trade-offs in some key BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi advantage areas in order to get the capability? If you're not gonna use the capability, I'm not really sure it's worth it. A lot of people still might think it's worth it because the name is cool and the look is cool and it's like the hot new SUV right now. But to me personally, I wouldn't necessarily make that trade-off unless I really wanted the capabilities, which I do. But anyway, there you go. My new Defender now has 20,000 miles, just shy of 20,000 miles. It is probably the highest mileage new Land Rover Defender in the United States, since these have only been out here for roughly like a little over a year, like 13 months. There might be someone with slightly higher miles, but especially someone who got theirs in November like me, I'm doing pretty well. And I strongly suspect mine is the only one that has been from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean and back twice, because I've done that trip now twice. I have really used the car, and I've had a couple check engine lights, and obviously the sunroof has stopped working twice, but I have to say, this is a brand new model in its first model year from a new factory. And yeah, Land Rover's kind of known for having some issues, but I think a lot of brands in a first model year car from a first factory in a brand new model would also be having a few little things to sort out. You look at some recalls from certain other brands and some troubles that other brands have had launching cars. I don't think this is dramatically worse. And certainly nothing has stranded me. There haven't been any major issues or anything like that. And generally speaking, it's gone pretty well in 20,000 miles.